believe it or not, I am an INFJ.
Welcome to another episode of Chewing the Fat. I am your host, Big Rob. Thank you so much for tuning in, for following along the podcast on Instagram at chewingthefatbr, and also for the folks who bought me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. I really appreciate that. And I always appreciate the guests I have in studio. She's an author. She's a writer. She's an artist and an actress in her own right. Please welcome this week, Charmain Zimmerman Brackett. Charmain.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you and not in a theater setting.
Right.
Yeah, that's usually when I see you.
Right. Charmain, you're from the Augusta area, right?
I am.
You guys born and raised. And everything like that. Charmain is sister to Leonard Zimmerman, the artist that we all know and love. I think you were the first sister and brother that I've had. I just realized you're the first sister and brother I've had on the podcast.
Well, there you go. Awesome.
Look at that. Yeah. Charmain, again, I think we met each other initially in like I said, in theater circles,
so.
like out at Fort Gordon or Lachat, or,
yeah.
Augusta Players or somewhere like that.
Nice, good world there.
It really is. When I came back to Augusta from Birmingham, I made a promise to myself I was going to get more involved in the theater here. And man, finding the sandbox there at Lachat really was such a warm and welcoming experience, as well as the Augusta Players and Fort Gordon. I guess
Eisenhower,
and it's the President's Theater, right?
It's the President's Theater.
It's
now.
not the dinner theater anymore. So, gosh, all the names have changed. Tell you how old I am. But it was just such a warm and welcoming community, and I remember just meeting you and then finding out that you were a writer, and all this other cool stuff going on. There's so many people, so many talented people in this area. That have so much stuff going on that it's amazing, the talent pool that this town has. Growing up here and being a writer, was that something you were always passionate about growing up?
So I've done some. I've talked to some groups before, and I usually start off my author spiel with, people ask me, "Did you always want to be a writer?" And the answer is no. I never wanted to be a writer, but I had to be. It was one of those things that always called to me. Yeah. And it was something that I couldn't not do. And so I remember going to college. I went to Augusta College, and I majored in English. And people were like, "So what are you going to do? Be a teacher?" And I have the utmost respect for teachers. Yeah. However, my immediate response was no, because I knew that I was not called into a classroom with a bunch of little people or older people, because I didn't like standing up in front of them, for one. But the love of writing, the love of reading as a child, I love to read. I see all these reels about Gen X and how we were forced to go outside. And I thought, I stayed in my bedroom and I read. That's what I did as a kid and a teenager. And I was one of those that, you had the flashlight under the covers and you're reading. That was my life, Nancy Drew, reading under the covers. So I majored in English. And when people would ask me that, I'd be like, oh, I've got to find something to do. And I ended up in a journalism class. Oh, wow. And I started writing for the Augusta Chronicle in the sports section when I was still at Augusta College. And that was just something that I really enjoyed, telling those stories and meeting people. And over the years, I've met so many cool people. So so it was just something I had to do. Yeah, and then it's kind of a funny story. I would interview these authors and they would say, "So my characters told me how to write the story." And I thought, okay, they're crazy. Until I started writing, and you get these characters in your head and they have their own voice. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they are telling you what to do next.
Oh, wow.
Just by having, listening to these dialogue, what would I imagine their dialogue to be? And as it progressed, that dialogue seemed to just take over on its own, as my imagination would go.
Yeah.
Not that I'm hearing voices or anything,
Right.
but it's that whole inner voice thing. And you could hear the characters talking back and forth and be, that makes total sense. That sounds like something they would say. That sounds like something they would do.
Yeah.
And so it was that character-driven narrative that brought my books to life, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, because I mean, it's world building. I mean, that's what you're doing. Right? I mean, you're not just creating the words that these characters say. You're creating their background that you never know about as a reader necessarily. Mm-hmm. It may never get explained, but you as the author know, where they're coming from. And just creating that entire world. And, maybe it comes out in another book or a third edition, whatever. Right. But you have to have that initially to be able to push those stories forward. And I think you're right about it's not something you want to do. It's something you had to do. I'm a big proponent of folks getting stuff that's inside out. Yeah. We all deal with stuff inside, good stuff, bad stuff, get it out in some form. You know what I mean? Some sort of creative form, whether it be like performing, writing songs, singing, humming, playing an instrument, writing a book.
Right.
It just, when you've got that stuff inside you, sometimes it's just very cathartic, and it's what your soul needs to get it out. And you never know what that stuff is going to then resonate with somebody else too. The hearer or the seer or the listener or whatever, or the reader or whatever. So I think that's very important. And it's very cool that you were like, I didn't necessarily want it, but
no,
but it was in there.
There are days when I sit there and think, I don't want to do this. I don't want to write a story. I've got like 7 articles that I need to write. And it's like, I just don't want to do it today. And there are people that authors, they're like, I just can't write unless I have inspiration. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Right. You just got that. You've got the well to draw from. You personally have that well to draw from. You mentioned working for the Chronicle in the sports department. That had to be very interesting at the time because even now, sport. And I mean, just as a woman working in sports. Because even now, it is more prevalent that you'll see female sportscasters and things like that, but you still, it's usually a male dominated industry or subgenre,
It is. I grew up, my mom and I would watch the Atlanta Braves. I remember distinctly watching the Atlanta Braves and playing cards together when I was like a preteen or younger. I think we started watching the Braves when I was about 10, and they were horrible at the time. So we would.
So you were a true fan.
Yes, we were, and then the Falcons too, and they were horrible too. And I remember one year when they were actually kind of good, and they were in the playoffs, and we went to the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium on December 24th, and it was freezing, so cold, and we would go back and forth into the bathroom because it was warm in the bathroom, and it'd be like we could thaw out our toes for just a couple of minutes and go sit. And my dad would keep these scrapbooks of the Falcons, and I think I still have them. But every Monday morning, he would cut the stuff out of the newspaper, and it was just, I don't know. I think that's probably where it came from. Oh, wow. And I just thought that I wanted to be a sports writer. And so in high school, I went to Aquinas. We really didn't have a newspaper per se. It was this purple, I'm dating myself now, the purple mimeographed things. Yeah. And so I remember writing a couple of little game stories there. And there's a photographer, amazing photographer. I shout out to Mike Adams all the time because he's great. So if you're listening to this, Mike Adams, we, a couple of years ago when there were 4 teams from the Augusta area at the state basketball tournament, I was there writing for another publication, and there I was. I had my credentials. I had everything in front of me, sitting courtside. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Because I did sports, but back in the day when I started, I spent my Friday nights compiling the stats from football games. And so, this is pre-internet. people had to call it in.
Yeah.
The coaches would call in the stuff, and I'd take all the stats and, just the highlights of the game. And I was responsible for updating standings and all of that. And we would leave at 1:30 Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I remember one day leaving, and the first edition in the newspaper had already been printed, and somebody handed it to me on the way out. And I was like, I do not want to do this the rest of my life. So I did some other things, but, like I said, 2 years ago, being courtside for the state, and we had all those state titles. It was so cool.
That was awesome.
And, like the other day I went to, they had this clinic for these kids, a golf clinic and it was women from the Augusta National Women's Amateur. They were there. And so I was focusing on the clinic, but I thought, I'm interviewing all these really fantastic players. I need to do a story, at least to preview the tournament here.
Yeah.
So I'm back around to sports. It's kind of a full circle thing.
But it sounds like sports were a core memory for you, though, for remembering, say, watching the games and being a part of that and being excited because, like, your parents were excited about it. Yeah. And then it was a family thing. So,
yeah. And I played softball. I was horrible. I played softball in high school, but my parents, and that's a great memory that I have, that no matter what game, no matter where we were, my parents, my friend Lisa's parents, and I had a friend named Laura, her parents, those sets of parents were always at every game.
Oh,
every single game. We could travel an hour, 2 hours away, and there they would be.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now you, like I said, I met you in theater. You mentioned in school that you did not want to be in front of people.
Yeah, no.
How did that person that didn't want to be in front of people decide to want to be in front of people in theater? Was that early on? Was that later?
Well, in high school, so I went to, like I said, Aquinas, and we had award-winning drama groups, and I did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat when I was a junior. That was such a great experience. But I always grew up as this very shy person, even though I wanted to perform and do those things. That just that fear, stage fright and stuff. And so my youngest child is 28. But when she was 4 years old, she started taking ballet. It's Augusta Ballet now, but it was like Columbia County Ballet then. And her older sister was taking dance. And at 3, she said, I want to do what my sister's doing. So we put her in ballet, and she did that from 3 until after she graduated high school. But I remember watching her at 4 years old, and she got out on that stage and owned it with no fear. And she was very perturbed with the other little girls who got stage fright and were standing around just with their mouths wide open and looking at the lights, and some cried, and, because they were on stage. And so that her first performance was Nutcracker. Her birthday's November. So 4 years old, she just turned 4. There she was. And then in May, they did The Roar of Love. And so she was part of a group. They had to go behind the scrim all the way back, come around on the other side and then come out in the front. And something happened with the person who was supposed to be leading them. They had an adult bring them out. And we were at dress rehearsal, and all of a sudden Allie comes out, and she knows exactly where she's supposed to go, knows exactly what music she's supposed to come out. She does it. She does her thing. And I thought, she's 4 years old. I am much older than she is, and she's not afraid of this. What is wrong with me? And so she was my catalyst for thinking, that's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And she doesn't let anything hold her back at 4.
Yeah.
At 4.
Right.
And I'm an adult. I'm in my 30s, and she's 4. Yeah. So Barbara Feldman is a good friend of mine, and she had Storyland Theater. And I remember telling her, I really want to do theater. And she's like, well, come to my house and I'll let you, and you will sing for me. I said, okay. So I went to Barbara's house and I sang for her. And I ended up doing Cinderella in 2006, I think it was. So that was a few years after my daughter was about 9 by then. But I did Cinderella. And it was cool. And so that started this whole just being out on stage and her giving me that validation that there was talent there, that I could maybe do something on stage. And after that, I started auditioning for stuff and getting parts. And then they let me do Glinda and Wizard of Oz. And that was such an amazing show. I was with Richard Justice and Michael Hamilton and, people who are no longer with us. And Betty Walpert was the Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, and I'm out there going, I'm on stage with all these fantastic people. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That is awesome. Do you still try and find time to do some of that now? I mean, you've got all these voices in your head. I understand you kind of.
Well, the Wizard of Oz is, the Augusta Players are doing the Wizard of Oz again in 2025. And so that's already on my radar. Now that I've put it out there, I guess I'm going to have to really audition for it. So,
Scott, if you're listening.
Yes, exactly. He knows.
There you go. That's right. Hold Charmain to it. Okay.
Once you get past Jesus Christ Superstar, I'm going to talk to you.
Right. So for your books and your writing, is there a certain genre that you fall into that you really love, or are you?
I'm all over the place. I mean, I think that's the thing about writing for a newspaper is, I've covered all of it. I've written religion stories. I've written sports stories. I've covered city council meetings. I've done stories on food. I've done stories on entertainment. Pretty much covered the gamut. I've even done some breaking news crime stories. Yeah. Those were not my favorite. We'll talk about that in the second segment. But I've covered all of those. And so when sticking with a genre, it's like I have all these. I've written 2 children's books. I wrote one that was based on my great grandmother when she was 4 years old, talking about 4 years old, 4 year olds. You can edit that part. 4-year-olds. And she was born in 1890. And in 1894, her father owned a circus. It was called the M.L. Clark and Sons. M.L. Clark and Sons Circus. It wasn't circus. M.L. Clark and Son. Why can't I think about it? But anyway, so they had their own circus, and she was the featured performer. She was an aerialist, an acrobat, a contortionist. That's what she started at. And then when she met my great grandfather, he was child labor. He worked for a tire plant in Ohio, and he had. This is 1890s, 1900s, early 1900s, and he and his brothers, 2 of his brothers, 3 of them, they ran off and joined the circus, literally, to get away from that environment. And so he was a trapeze artist, and he joined the M.L. Clark and Sons combined shows. Now that I remember it, it's there somewhere. And they met, and I didn't know a lot about my circus background until 2012. And I met a cousin, and she had all that information. And I ended up writing a children's book about it because I didn't have enough to write a book, full-length book, just a children's book. And but my grandmother had written the circus performer's daughter. She had written a journal, and whenever they travel, she'd just write down notes and stuff about what she remembered about her mom. And Pearl was my great grandmother. She died when she was 36. She had tuberculosis. And then my grandmother, Juanita, she was shy like me. And so she was afraid to be in front of people. And she didn't really talk about the circus background because people they pointed their fingers at them, ooh, the circus people, it's bad reputation, that kind of thing. So she didn't really talk about it, but she wrote about it. She actually wanted to be a writer. And so one of the things that I did was put her name on the book, and that won the Georgia Author of the Year from the Georgia Writers Association in 2015, I think it was. So I've written that, and then I wrote a story about boys in dance because my son, like I said, my daughter was a dancer. So that first Nutcracker, he was there watching her, and there was one point in the show when the male dancer, the Cavalier, picks the Sugar Plum Fairy up and promenades across the stage with her above his head. And my 6-year-old son turned and looked at me and he said, wow, he's really strong. I want to do that. I got him in ballet. he did dance through into college and actually danced for Carnival Cruise Lines for a little while.
Oh, wow.
And that's another one of my children's books. So my children's books are nonfiction. And then I've written 12, 14, something like that, fiction. There are 3 that are science fiction fantasy. And then I wrote a series, and you had Nicole Swanson on not too long ago, and she is narrating all those books. So if you like audiobooks, please get the ones that Nicole did. It's the Grace's Augusta Mystery Series, and they're set in Augusta, 6 of them. And the one thing that I liked about the mysteries is with a newspaper article, there's a beginning, a middle, and the end. And it's pretty easy to figure out how to do that. And with something like the science fiction fantasy, it's like, it could go on forever. And trying to narrow down the plot for me was, there are other authors could figure that out a little better than I can. But for me, it was a little more difficult because it's so nebulous. You just go on. But with a mystery, you got a dead body and you got to figure out who did it. And, and then there's all the stuff in between. So there's a beginning, there's an end, and then there's a middle. And the middle is where it's fun sometimes. And, but that's what I like about the mysteries. So I've spent more time doing the mysteries, I guess, than the others.
Awesome. I love that. You would not think that like a children's book, when you think children's book, those are normally fiction because they're children's books. And for the fact that your children's books are actually nonfiction and based on actual people and stories, and especially family, how special is that to be able to incorporate your life into something like that? That's amazing. I love that. And now on top of all of that, you also have Augusta Good News.
Yes, I do.
And let me just say, there is not enough good news in the world, and I applaud you for recognizing that and saying, you know what, I'm going to be a source of good news. So, what is Augusta Good News about?
So, Augusta Good News is a daily digital newspaper, and we're a member of the Georgia Press Association. So, we are a newspaper. Just there's not a I say there's not a printed version. There's a printed magazine, which is a little bit different, but it has, some of the stories from Augusta Good News. I spent 32 years at the Chronicle, and, a lot of the times the Chronicle had all of it. It had the crime and the government. I didn't write any about that. I mainly focused on the features, and I would go cover something and people would say, I just don't know why anybody doesn't cover the good news. And I thought, well, I'm here writing about your story, so I'm covering the good news. But I think that, we've been through some, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are in, contentious elections, where both sides get very hot and angry sometimes. And, coming through some of those, that's what happened with Happy, with my brother. It was because of some political stuff. And he was like, let's just put some joy out there. And, and coming through COVID. And then there was an interim between Augusta Good News and Augusta Chronicle. And I knew that time was ending. And, I woke up one morning and I trying to ponder my life choices. Did I want to work at Starbucks or, what am I going to do with my life? I know that this season is coming to an end and I don't know what to do next. And I woke up one morning and I saw a magazine and it said Inspiring Women of Augusta. And if I get a picture in my head of something, that is something I can work for and work towards, and I can make it real. If I can see it in my head, then I can make it real. With a lot of faith and hope and pixie dust and prayer. Anyway, but that is just something that, like my books, I've been able to see those. So I woke up that one morning and I thought, well, that's cool, but how do I get from where I am to there?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of steps in there. And so as I was thinking about it, it was like, what do you know how to do? Well, I know how to use WordPress. I know how to write a newspaper article. I know how to talk to people. I know how to find stories. I don't have a problem with content. That's not a problem. Okay. So if you had a magazine, well, when people started sending you stuff, you got deadlines and a magazine is, so many weeks out, a couple of months out, and you get something in between there. What would you do with it? Well, if I had a website, I could put it on the website. And so all of these gears started coming together. And the whole thing about finding a niche, what niche am I good at? And, another thing that popped into my head was a scripture, and it's in Philippians, I think. And it's like, whatsoever is pure, lovely, of good report, of good report. And that's where I guess the good news came from. It's like, what do you focus on? For me, like I said, if I get a picture, that's what I end up focusing on, and that's what I'm drawn to. And in my career of news, I used to be a real hardcore 24-hour news junkie.
Oh, wow.
And back when Columbine happened, there were 2 competing newspapers, and their whole task was to one-up each other. I mean, most of the country had stopped paying attention to what was going on. It was done. We had our 2 weeks on CNN, but the Denver Morning News and the whatever the other Denver paper was, every day there was something. And I was sucked into that. And, there are a lot of things that I can control, but I can't control that.
Yeah.
And it made me depressed and worried and fearful. And there were all these other bad things that started to happen. And, I try to preface this and say, yes, those are horrible things. Yes, we probably need to know about some of those.
Yeah.
But we do not need to do what I did and spend so much time focusing on it that it became, I became an expert on it. And that's not a good thing. To be an expert on, the shooting and what did happen, what didn't happen, their notebooks, all the things that they did. It kind of took over in a way. And so I cut cable in 2012. And that was one way that I stepped back and I was like, you know what? I need to focus on things that are positive. And and maybe I got some of that from my brother too, because he was like happy all the time. And I get a happy button every time he makes one. And that's usually at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
So just the whole focus of, what are you going to focus on? My personality is such, I am, believe it or not, I am an INFJ. Believe it or not, right here. Yes, as I've talked for all this time. But that's more my personality. I take on what other people are feeling.
Yeah.
I sense that. I internalize all those things. And I can be a very depressed person. I can go into a dark place really fast.
Yeah.
Fast, faster than that eclipse that's coming. I can go into a dark place and it's hard for me to get out. So I have to take control over what's going on in my brain. And I think we probably went ahead and went into another section of your podcast. But, where I was before in that interim period between the Chronicle and Augusta Good News, there was a big focus on the breaking news. I remember I was at Edisto Beach when I get a text from Mike Adams, who mentioned earlier, photographer. He's like, there's something going on over in downtown North Augusta. I was like, oh, Mike used to listen. I think he still does. He listens to the Police Scanner. And he had been in, and he's like, there's people talking over at Gary. Something just happened. I was like, oh no, I'm at Edisto. Please don't tell me this. And that was the day that the guy started shooting at the cops. You remember that? In downtown Georgia Avenue, got the guy shooting at cops. And so, we ended up getting a story, and there I was supposed to be relaxing at the beach, and I'm focusing on that. And, it was that constant, if I got an email from Mark Bowen, coroner of Richmond County, or Eric Abdullah, who's with Aiken County Sheriff's Department, there was something inside my body that went, it tensed up. It was like, oh God, that means somebody's dead.
Yeah.
That means somebody, they're dead. Yeah. It's especially Mark Bowen, obviously, but Eric Abdullah or anybody with Richmond County Sheriff. When I got those, I just felt something internal, because that meant I needed to be on top of it, make sure we got it out there, got it on the website. And it just got to be at the point where, I'd cut the cable news. I'd cut all of that from coming in all the time. And I needed that outlet of, okay, Augusta is not perfect, but find me a city anywhere in this world that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while we do have our share of problems, we have some great things going on here.
Absolutely.
We have some great people here. We have great places to go. Please don't tell me there's nothing to do in Augusta.
Oh, yeah.
We have great theater. We have, in any given day, you could find a musician playing at a restaurant. I mean, there are incredible musicians here. Yeah. Nature's great. If you like kayaking, go kayaking. We got like 4 or 5 companies that do it. There's stuff for kids here. There's all kinds of stuff. And, while we have problems, we've got great stuff. So, I went through this phase on Facebook where it was like, I'm going to accentuate the positive. I'm only going to put, and so I think all of that came together. So that was not a Reader's Digest version of that whole story. But, focusing on what's good, what's of ours pure, lovely, pure of good report. Think on these things, and as I started to think on those things, as I started to focus on those things, I remember somebody early on saying, "You mean there's really that much good stuff you can write about?"
Yeah.
We're almost at 1,000 articles.
Oh, wow.
In about 18 months.
I love that.
1,000, and I cannot get to all of them.
Yeah. I love that.
I personally can't. My goal is to be able to hire some people at some point, so that we can cover all this, because there's always great stuff going on. I have met some amazing people. I've always met amazing people in Augusta, and just to be able to continue this and that be the focus. And people all the time, when I tell them what I'm doing, they're like, "Oh, we need good news." Yeah. People will send me messages. This is just like a breath of fresh air for me. Yeah. I love Augusta Good News. I love going this. Like I mentioned, the goal was a magazine. And so after about 9 months of doing Augusta Good News, I sat back one day and thought, the idea was inspiring women of Augusta. And my brother said, that's too long of a magazine title. So I was like, well, I've been calling it for that for a good year. So let's put a colon in there between the inspiring and women, and it can be inspiring women of Augusta, because the focus of that publication, and it's a print publication, is women in Augusta. Now, my readership is 75% women. That's what Facebook tells me. So I found that audience there, but I try to focus on women in different segments of the community. A woman who is in the arts, a woman in business, a woman in a nonprofit, a young woman like college or high school age. But in the issue I'm working on now, I've got a 9-year-old that I'm going to focus. She's going to be the story because she was born with one leg, but she does 5Ks. And when you ask her, she runs. She uses, that's the word she runs. She's got crutches, but she runs with her dad. And that's something that they do together. He's done marathons. In February, they did the Augusta Half together, the 5K portion. She's 9 years old. I don't know how many 9-year-olds do 5Ks. She's done 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pretty amazing. So, and another person that I talk about a lot, because this woman just inspires me. She graduated from West Point. So she was in the military, the Army. She became a medical doctor. And then she had an illness that she had to have her leg amputated above her knee. And so now she's medically retired, but she is a wheelchair athlete. Not just one sport, mind you. She does pickleball, rugby, what is that? Curling.
Oh, wow.
Tennis. And, all of these sports at a high level. I mean, when one year for tennis, she was like in the top 10 in the nation for wheelchair tennis.
Wow.
She won a gold medal last year at the Veterans Games in Oregon in pickleball. First pickleball medal ever given. She got a gold. Wow. And she was recently named to the national rugby team. Yeah, I know. Cool. So it's like, I look at her and think, I don't have any excuse not to do anything,
know,
because and this, she lives in Grovetown. So people, I mean, we just have some amazing people. So Inspiring Women of Augusta usually has 6 or 7 stories. I threw in a food column. This coming issue is going to have a home story because I love decorating, and a lot of women do. So, and it's a magazine that men could read. I mean, it's got stories of people overcoming and people and great photography.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that it, not to oversimplify like the magazine or Augusta Good News, is it's kind of the adage, it's like you see what you look for.
Yeah.
You go to buy a white Suburban, you're going to see white Suburbans everywhere. So if you focus on that, that's the stuff you start seeing more. So then more of these stories start to pop up because you're looking for them. Exactly. That's where your mind is. So that's what's coming. I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. And there's so much out there. There really is. And I wish, sometimes I wish that I had 2 or 3 of me so I could do them all.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough hours in the day to get it all done.
For sure. And you talk about your time constraints and things like that, but like aside from all of the writing and all the story finding, for you personally, what do you do outside of that for your own entertainment or your own hobby? I mean, what's bringing you joy?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, well, writing is my hobby. And I thought, well, but my job is other people's hobbies. So, how do you reconcile that? But, with writing novels, that I will say this, there are about 7 novels on my computer. So when I die, if my kids go in there, that probably will never see the light of day because they are that cathartic process of, having these characters going through horrible things so that I can get all of that out. But, one of the, it'll be 8 years ago tomorrow. But I don't know when this will be aired, but today is April 3rd. So on April 4th of 2016, which is also the day that my first Augusta mystery came out, Grace's Augusta Mystery 1, Murder Under the Magnolias, which takes place during golf week, but not at a tournament. I decided that I wanted to do some stuff for my health. And over the past several years, I've lost about 70 pounds. And during the pandemic, before the pandemic, I'd been going to the gym. I was a gym rat, went to the gym every day. But during the pandemic, couldn't do that. And my parents, I didn't want to get sick and give it to my parents. So I stayed out of the gym for a while. But what I did is I started walking every day. And I started taking pictures on my walk because I just saw these cool things on my walk. People writing these messages, especially during April of 2020, encouraging messages in chalk on the sidewalk and things like that. And I started doing it and put it on Facebook, and people were like, wow, I really, they started liking it and making comments. Oh, how pretty things were. And so I just kept doing it. And I've never been, I always said I hated winter. That's what I always said. And so after about a year of taking pictures every day and putting on Facebook, and I have a hashtag of Walks with Charmain, I heard this little voice in my head say, you can't say that you hate winter because you have found beauty in every season. I was like, fine, it's my least favorite season. How's that? So because it's true. I mean, and the funny thing is I take pretty much the same path every day, but I would take different pictures. Now, right now, my feed is full of azaleas, and I am not sorry about that because I love azaleas. They're my favorite. But, just finding something interesting, or, Augusta has something blooming year round.
That's true. So
you can find something pretty, and especially people who don't live here. The ones that live up north. Oh, it's so pretty there. Yeah, well, we have something blooming all year round. Oh, I wish I could have something blooming all year round. And I got a message from somebody the other day, like 2 or 3 days ago. And this person said, you just don't know how much you've inspired me, because there's that consistency of being out there walking, and doing and trying to take care of yourself and take care of your body. And this person was talking about how they'd gone through, some pretty tough times in a relationship, and, they gained weight because emotional eating and that's real. That's very real. And I totally understand that because that's my thing. But I did that for a while, but then I decided that's me. I'm not saying everybody has to be like me. But my decision was, instead of eating to make myself feel better, I feel better after I take a walk. Even though there are days I'm like, I don't want to go for a walk. I don't want to go for a walk. But I'll make myself do that. Or I'm back in the gym too. I'll make myself do that. And then afterwards, it's like, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
Because the endorphins are there. And being out in nature, and you've got the vitamin D going, and you've got all of that. And there's just something calming about being out in nature. And my husband will even say, if I hadn't had a walk, he's like, have you had your walk today? That means you're a little testy. I think you need to go for a walk. But it's something about that calming thing. And for this person to say, it really has inspired me, and I want to, do better for myself because what I've seen you do, that really is very humbling that somebody would send me a note on Facebook and say that.
All right, Charmain, this is the second segment of the show. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into your mental health journey. I know we touched on it a little bit last segment there, but for you, how do you keep the darkness at bay?
Well, it's definitely the going out and walking. That's one of them. But the focus, everything is mental. I did have during February, it was dark. And it was just that daily thing of, having a reason. What is your reason? And there are days when you wonder, why do I do the things that I do? I don't really want to do that story, and I don't want to tell your story. I'm a human being. I go through that sometimes, but thinking about what other people have overcome, and the fact that I started this to inspire people. I started Augusta Good News to inspire people and give people, we went through the pandemic with people having mental health challenges, and, seeing more suicide rates and things like that go up. And, thinking, what is it that I can do to keep myself uplifted? I had a family member that went through a tough time last year. And, there were days when all I could do to that person is say, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you, because I would get messages, and this might be a little too personal. So, but I would get messages from that person saying, I don't want to be here anymore. And it would break my heart. And I'd be like, I love you. And that's the best I could do. And so I thought, I guess I'm just one of those kinds of people where I know that I have to pull myself up.
Yeah.
I can't rely on anybody else to do it. And I'm the one that checks on everybody, except for my mom. Okay. Mom's out there listening. Except for my mom, nobody checks on me. And it's usually those strong people that nobody checks on. So if you're listening to this and you got a strong friend, you need to go check on that person. Because one of the things that I learned is if I thought of somebody and I hadn't thought of them in a long time, I needed to check on them.
Yeah.
That person would just come into my head, and it'd be like, and I would send them a text message, and then the message would come back, I really needed that. You have no idea. And so how do I stay out of the dark place? It's just knowing that, if nobody checked on me, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to do the things that I know that help me. It's going on that walk. It's making sure I'm eating the right things. It's not, for me, certain foods I just stay away from, because if I eat them the next morning, physically, I'm not going to feel well.
Yeah.
Physically, I'm going to feel like crap, if I can say that. I'm going to be very tired or very overwhelmed. And so eating the right things, eating the right kinds of food, having fruits and vegetables and healthy foods, for me, that's a way that I stay physically healthy and mentally healthy.
Oh, wow.
And sunlight, I like sunlight. And I think my photography is one of those things that just seeing the beauty in nature and looking for it.
Yeah.
That song years ago, Stop and Smell the Roses. Count your many blessings every day. And sometimes that's hard. People are like, well, you should just count your blessings and be thankful. And, you know, if you're depressed, you're like,
what blessings?
I don't want to be thankful right now.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in that place, you're like, what is it that I'm thankful for? And really, I mean, sometimes you just have to pull yourself out of it. Yeah. You have to force yourself out of it, even when you don't want to. And I think the thing that does that is, I mean, I know that I've got my children who love me and are depending on me. And I have my husband who loves me. And God, thank God for that man. Because he's my rock. He's one of the reasons that I try to stay healthy. And, you know, not to please him, but for the fact that he loves me so much that I need him.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, being there to take care of my mom and my brother, you know, I mean, I love what he does for the community. I don't know if I answered that question or not.
No, you did, because, you know, it's, I feel very much the same way in certain aspects. It's like, you know, I started this podcast during the pandemic because of things that I was feeling. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had a good friend that told me, it's like, hey, you know, and this was me putting all these obstacles in my way before I actually started. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd be like, I had this great idea, but then I was like, oh, no, I got to get this microphone. Oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. And I got to do this. And I got to do. He's like, if you don't hit record and put an episode out, it doesn't matter what you think or how good you think it's going to do for someone if they can never hear it. So if they don't know that there are these good stories out there, they don't know that there's positivity in the world, that there is light, that there is sunshine, you know, that there's beautiful flowers no matter the season. You know, if you don't put that out there, it's almost doing a disservice to the folks that you wanted to help. Yeah. And yes, we all need to be the strong ones. We need to be checked on. Yeah. But I do think folks that have that empathetic nature and want, you know, those strong ones don't want other people to feel that way because they felt that way. Yeah. We know what it's like. We know what it's like. So I don't want you to have to feel that. So, so I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping going, because I know there's somebody there that may need to see that picture that day, or may need to hear that positive story. So I absolutely think you did answer the question. Yeah. I mean, you know, some of the things I draw inspiration. I mean, we all love one of those underdog stories, you know, and I've read my share of them. I've seen those movies. I would love movies like Rudy and all of those underdog movies, the Disney movie where the you know, the Bad News Bears. You know, we Americans love those kinds of worst to first kinds of things. And you know, that's something I've been able to see, like with the person I was talking about before, the wheelchair athlete, Lisa Maddox. One of the questions I asked her was about her mental health, because, you know, to me, I thought losing a leg, I mean, what does that do for you mentally, especially when this person in high school was an all-star athlete. She played basketball. And, you know, so as a basketball player, she relied on her legs. Yeah. You know, so, and she said, well, for me, sports is that outlet. Sports is what helps me with my mental health. And, you know, I think a lot of ways when I'm writing these stories about other people, that really is helping my mental health, because I'm focusing on their positive stories and, you know, trying to draw inspiration from them. Because I think that, and I feel that's one of the reasons why I started what I started, is I can give you these stories of people that live here. You may run into this person at the grocery store. Yeah. You may encounter this person in your daily life. It's great to, I mean, like recently, my youngest daughter and I, we went to Columbia to see the Gloria Estefan show. Get on your feet. It's just on your feet, but it's from that song, Get on Your Feet. You know, and she's got a song about coming out of the darkness and getting into the light. Yeah. And one of the things that she did is, you know, when they were trying to cross over from simply playing Spanish singing music into singing English songs, words in, please edit that, songs in English that had that Latin beat. Yeah. They faced a lot of adversaries. You know, it was hard for them to break over. They had these record producers are like, nobody's going to listen to that. We're not going to give you the money. And they
took their songs and took them to nightclubs and asked them, will you play this? And then from there, they started getting played on the radio. And they had to work it.
Yeah.
And I guess, it's great to hear about Gloria Estefan, woohoo, but I can hear about somebody in Augusta who has overcome a major challenge, and maybe they don't have worldwide success, but that's a question. What is success? What does it come down to? If you only equate success with money, then, there's so many things that will be lost out. If that's the only measure of success you have is money.
Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's all in the approach and being able to, tell those stories again, so that message gets out. I have another friend that tells me all the time, it's like, Rob, you realize that he's in a podcast circle.
Yeah.
He's like, you realize that you have a top 5% global podcast. And I was like, I mean, yeah. He's like, but you don't tell people that. I'm like, well, why would I tell people that? It's not, I'm not I'm not a toot my own horn type of person.
Right.
Again, as I said before we started, I feel like what we do here is very important to me, and I feel very empathetic and very precious of the stories that my guests allow me to tell or help them tell and guide them through telling. So it's not something I want to degrade by, oh, you're this and you won these awards and all. It's not about that. It's about you sitting here with me, telling me the things that are important to you, and the things that make you get through those tough times.
Yeah. And in a way though, because now I look back, when I had that idea of creating a website, I did not know how to build a website. I built my own website in 10 days and started putting content on it. I don't know how I did that. But see, that's the thing too, is when you look back at where you've come from and what you've already come through in life, and you go, okay, so I've written 14 books. I won a Georgia Author of the Year award. I won I did a story when I wrote for the Signal newspaper. I wrote for them. That was a Fort Gordon newspaper at the time. At the Department of the Army level. That's the highest level. I won a second place in their journalism competition. I won the inaugural Yerby Award for Fiction. Okay, so I've got those things, and I can go back and say, I know how to write. At least somebody can affirm that I know how to write. But what are other things that I did for myself? Well, I walk every day, and that's a major thing that you can say you do that. I lost 70 pounds and kept it off. I've raised 3 great children. I have a wonderful husband, and those are my victories. Yeah. You look at those things. What are your victories in your own life? Maybe those aren't your victories. Your victories are different, but what have you already come through? There's this meme on Facebook, something about all the tough days in your life. You come through them. You came through those. And one thing that my dad always said to me, and this is something that gets me through everything. And he told me this when I was a teenager, and I was like, right. But he said to me that everything is temporary and subject to change. Everything is temporary. And so when you take that and you go, okay, I'm having a really bad day. I don't feel successful. I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I don't feel like I'm making an impact. I don't feel like anybody knows that I exist. But, I did this thing here, and I accomplished this, and all my other crappy, whatever word you want to put in there, days, I've made it through. I've made it through this. And I can get through one more. And if I can just get through today, I don't have to get through tomorrow yet. If I get through today, let me go to sleep and then just sleep on this. And then tomorrow, it'll be a new day. We can start over with a fresh slate. And I guess that's one of maybe that at the core of it is how I get through every day. And I mean, I don't go around telling people, everybody, that I'm a Christian or whatever, but my faith is very important. And it's the thing that undergirds all of it, is knowing that I can pray. I can, I have that to get me through.
All right, Charmain, it's time now for the third segment of the show. It's time now for the Fast Five.
Uh-oh.
The Fast Five. It's time now for the Fast Five. Sorry, I'm still working on the theme song. I know it's been 4 seasons, but it's work in progress. Fast Five is powered by Poddex. It's an app created by my friend Travis Brown. If you go to chewingthefatbr.com/Poddex, it'll take you to the link where you can download it from your Google Play or your Apple App Store. It was created for podcasters, but they're great little interview and icebreaker questions as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 5 questions. It's first thing comes to the top of your head.
That
wrong.
could be quite scary.
No wrong answers. You ready?
Sure.
Here we go. Question number 1. What did your 15-year-old self imagine you'd be doing right now?
Wow. What did my 15-year-old? I don't know. I think that was probably still in my my journalism phase. Yeah. I had no idea I'd be a publisher of a newspaper. I just thought I'd be a writer, I guess.
I'm sure she'd be very proud of you right now, though.
Probably.
Okay. Question number 2. What makes you lose track of time?
When I get involved in a story. When I'm writing, I have no idea what time it is. And I look at the clock and think, how did it get to be 7:00 already? And did I eat?
Right. I've been there on the did I eat part for myself, for sure. All right. Question number 3. What is your most treasured memory?
Wow. Gosh. There's just so many things in my life,
Just pick one that pops to the top of it, bubbles to the top, because
I told you I see in pictures. I just see a collage of pictures. I mean, being a mom and seeing my kids dance and doing that. I think it's all mother related, probably. Just raising my kids, because I have 3 and they all think that I have a favorite. So,
and they're all right. And they're all wrong.
The dog is my favorite.
Love it. All right, question number 4. Now, you're an author, but what was the last book you read?
I'm currently reading Ward Clayton's book about the black caddies in Augusta, and it's something like Legends of the Game. He's actually got it just came out April 2nd, but I ordered an advance copy. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Okay. Very cool. And question number 5. You've written some sci-fi books. Whatever. Do you prefer Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Dune?
Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yeah. Yeah. Douglas Adams fan?
Yeah, because it's the humor involved with it. Yeah. Dune's too serious.
Too serious. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that too. Well, Charmain, that's our Fast Five, and that is the show.
Yay.
Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and appreciate that, talking with me.
Yeah,
I think we took longer than an hour.
No, this was great. If folks want to keep up with you in your Augusta Good News or your book series or anything like that, what's the best way they can keep up with you?
Augusta Good News is the website. It's augustagoodnews.com. On Facebook, it's at Augusta Good News. And then for my books, they're available on Amazon, or if you're in Augusta, you can go to the Book Tavern and get them at the Book Tavern. And
the audiobooks from Nicole Swanson.
Exactly. Audible. Yes, get an Audible membership, and you can get and she's working on book 6 right now, actually. So there are 6 in that series. And on Facebook, my author page is at CZ Brackett, I think. No, that might be Twitter. Just look it up, Charmain Zimmerman Brackett, author. Yeah, that one.
There you go. Well, cool. Thank you so much for being here. I wish you nothing but success in everything and all of the things that you've got going on. And I just love the spirit that you bring to this town and to the work that you have. You're just a ray of light in this town. So much success in it all.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And if you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by buying me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. But until next time, look forward to the chance we have to sit a spell and chew the fat.